Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. My name is Tayte and I'm joined today with George Aldridge, without Chris because he doesn't like the Coen brothers films. Might as well get that out of the way first. And welcome to the review of Hail Caesar, which I haven't actually noticed has a comma in the title until now. Interesting.
Yeah. Going back to Chris though, I mean, I think this is the first film he has openly refused to watch, which is shocking considering the amount of films he hates that he does go and watch sequels to.
Yeah.
But I wanted him in on this because it's always funner with his angry, depressing reactions. Like Batman vs Superman's going to be like 2 hours of just like screaming.
Do you know what? I cannot wait for the Man of Steel review that we're going to do.
I know. But this, I was just there like, oh, I thought you'd watch it, Chris.
Yeah,
I love the Coen brothers.
I didn't realise that he didn't like the Coen brothers because the Coen brothers have done so many good films. Off the top of my head, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, Big Lebowski, True Grit. You've also got other ones like Barton Fink and Miller's Crossing.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Burn After Reading.
Burn After Reading, not so much. And The Lady Killers, which is the best film of them all.
And in recent terms, they even wrote Bridge of Spies, which...
Yeah, they did, and it was a pretty good screenplay, I have to say.
And it was different for him.
Yeah, it was, very different, but this one was back to the old Coen brothers kind of way. And this film was actually a really good premise, and I was quite excited just from the trailers for it. I think one of the trailers, let me just quote the line, "Would it that were so simple? Oh, if only." If you don't know what trailer we're referring to here, then it's the second trailer for the film. But the film's plot itself is just very simple. A Hollywood fixer in the 1950s works to keep the studio stars in line. There are loads of different subplots that take place with I'd say 5 or 6 main characters, with all their different stories intertwining and stuff like that. But in the end, it turns out to be a really good film with some brilliant performances from people, some new stars coming up, some old stars like George Clooney still in the ranks. And personally, for me, it was just a good film overall.
Yeah, and brief thoughts is that I like the Coen brothers. I was really looking forward to this film, especially when I saw that first trailer for it. It's a very interesting premise, and obviously going back to the sort of 50s Hollywood, which is a very different time, which I'm glad they elaborate on. But it was a great cast, and I thought it was just very entertaining, and it was witty in the right way. I'm not a big fan of Wes Anderson. I don't know why it's related to this, but it's because it's a comedy in March that should win some Oscars next year. And I think it probably would have dominated this year had it have been ready. It clearly wasn't ready in time for Oscar season, but I can easily see it having a bounce back next year and winning stuff.
Yeah, in fact, talking about that, this is probably our first Oscar contending film for next year. And we've literally just come off the back of the Oscars, and I could safely say that I could see this being nominated for possibly... Screenplay, definitely. Best film... Maybe it might get long shot. Like, it might be the Martian. No one expects it to do well, and it does really well.
And cinematography,
and maybe even supporting actor.
Yeah.
So
we've got a lot of potential.
We'll go into that in a bit. So we've done our thoughts going in. Let's talk about a couple of the main characters. So first of all, we've got Eddie Mannix, who the film opens on, played by Josh Brolin, who once again has had a brilliant year. I have to say, he has had such a good year and such a good turnaround. I mean, I remember doing the review with Chris, the Everest review, and thinking, okay, he's quite good in that. Awesome. I'd like to see what more he can do. He then turns out the performance in Sicario, which was absolutely amazing. And then he's going to be Thanos in Infinity War. And this film as well, where he is just completely amazing and brilliantly acts out the entire film.
Yeah, and they had him as the protagonist. I mean, I know he was arguably the protagonist in
Sicario.
I haven't seen Sicario. I was thinking No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
But that film's all about Javier Bardem, whereas this, to me, was all about Eddie Mannix, which is the character he plays. And it's such an interesting role because if you haven't seen a Hollywood fixer before, you've seen producers, but you've never seen the guy that's going out getting his hands dirty alongside having his like at home problems as well. And it was kind of like a day in the life type thing, but I thought it was great fun, and he was very entertaining in it.
He had some of the wittiest dialogue and some of the best lines in the film as well. He was just all over the place because he was the main person to connect all of the stories that were happening together. And I think it was just interesting. Even the character interactions, personally, the ones which I enjoyed the most were with Tilda Swinton's characters, shall we say, of Fora Thacker and Thessaly Thacker, the two journalists. One of them being like a gossip column, the other one being a tabloid. Both hate each other, both try and get the story from Eddie Mannix, and it was just the interactions that he had with every single character was amazing, and I feel like he was the perfect glue for this film to bring together.
Yeah, and he kind of not wavers towards the end, but something happens with a side character which kind of kickstarts the sort of finale chain of events. Who is the right place, right time, not a complaint. They're perfectly scripted because you don't see it coming. There's more in that in the spoiler section because I'm struggling to talk about it now.
Yeah.
But that is the character played by someone not many people are familiar with. I think I can't really pronounce his name. It's Alden.
Oh, is this
Henreich? He played Hobie Doyle in it.
Emmerich.
He was this kind of back in them days, you were contracted to a film company rather than a film as such, and they would have you doing the amount of films you've got to do. So he's this kind of cowboy actor who's clearly amazing at doing action, and then they kind of have him trying to do another role within like a day's notice. So it was really cool seeing that sort of old school Hollywood formula, because there's so many stories to go. Like I think it was Elizabeth Taylor, who like they'd always fall out with the producers, but they they had to fill out the 10-picture deal they've got to do. But the way in which they do it is just flying film to film, because you forget in them days people were making films every 6 months to a year rather than 2-3 years.
Yeah, and I'd say that because they even said George Clooney, who is, I'd say, second main character, not really a side character or a supporting actor. He was probably the second main actor of the film, because a lot of the film is focused on him and him in the film, Hail Caesar. And I'd say that with George Clooney's character, it was just a normal George Clooney performance. There's nothing against George Clooney himself. I'd say that a lot of the script was based around him kind of interacting with the characters that eventually, and the actions that eventually take place. It's very difficult to speak here without spoiling anything. But all I can say is he is more of a method actor, but a very kind of loose claim to one. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's always good seeing Clooney, and he does really enjoy working with the Coen brothers. And I read an interview where this film was pitched, I think, about 10 years ago, and then he didn't expect it. Obviously, like 7-8 years later, they go, "We've wrote it." Yeah. He's like, "Okay, I'm in straight away," which is great. I prefer directors that have that cast. I mean, you can look at most of these; they've all worked with the Coen brothers before. You know what you're going to get. They know what they'll get out of you, and that type of connection between a director and actor, I think, is so important.
But actually, going back to some of the different characters in the film, the character of Hobie Doyle, personally for me, was the best part of this film. Even better than the screenplay itself that it presented, because by the end of the film, I'm going to try and pronounce it once and then just call him Hobie Doyle from afterwards. Alden Ehrenreich, character of Hobie Doyle, who was the cowboy. He was the most captivating character in the film, and the one who I really focused on a lot, and I feel like he may be nominated for the Oscar possibly next year.
I can see it happen. I mean, he's someone, I've said before, we don't really know who he is, and they introduce him as the cowboy type person, and then you see him on this journey, him struggling at becoming, a kind of, what's the word? A performance. It looked like he was going from action to drama, and in terms of the directing styles of the two films they demonstrate with him, I thought it was just great character development from the go. And then the further you get into the film, the choices he's making, how he's acting around people, and he's such a likable character.
Yeah.
I think Chris would hate him in a nice way. But that type of characters normally they're irritating, but I think he's used perfectly in this film.
I think it was a scene from the trailer which was possibly the best scene. So we aren't really spoiling it here, but it's a scene where he tries to act in the drama, which is being directed by Ralph Fiennes, and it's the line, I'm just going to pull it up again because I keep on forgetting it, "Would that it was so simple." And there's a brilliant, it's probably one of the best character interactions in the film between him and Ralph Fiennes, and Ralph Fiennes is trying to say the line in a normal accent, in a suave way that he would like it to be said, and like Hobie Dawes' character is just kind of replying with his own version of how he is trying to say the line, and he's finding it difficult, maybe because of the accent that he has, and also with possibly the acting background that he's had before, which we can go into later in the film, because it kind of reveals how he became into the acting business later on. But it's the whole interaction of, what if it were so simple? And Hobie Dawes coming back around and saying, what that it were so simple? And it's just brilliant interaction between the two of them.
And you get that bit, and then there's the surname. I mean, Ralph Fiennes is playing Lawrence Lawrence.
Yes.
And he switches between how he wants it to be said almost every time. He's like, "Hey, Mr. Lawrence," and he's like,
"No,
Lawrence.
You can call me Lawrence. It doesn't matter."
And then when he's get angry, he's like, "Call me Lawrence, not Lawrence." And, Ralph Fiennes is great. I mean,
he's one of those people who would suit perfectly a Wes Anderson script or a Coen Brothers script, a script which he's starting to move into, but it's taken him a long time to move into comedies.
Yeah, and I think he's doing an absolutely amazing job in it.
He is doing a brilliant job in it. I feel like his transition into comedies was a lot better done than other actors have done in the past. Actors off the top of my head, I can immediately think of Robert De Niro and, main one of Robert De Niro, maybe Al Pacino as well, who haven't really transitioned well into kind of later age of acting and moving into comedies. But I feel like Ralph Fiennes is perfectly suited to this.
I think with Ralph Fiennes, I know it's a bit off topic, but he's taking on roles that are almost like perfect to him.
Yes.
Whereas De Niro I like De Niro. I did like the Focus films, but with all this nonsense like The Intern now, Bad Grandpa, it's just any project they're chucking at him. I think he was in the horrible film with Stallone.
The embodiment of, I always use this, but it's doing it just for the money.
Yeah,
a person who doesn't care about the film, just cares about the house they're going to buy with it.
And it's frustrating because even in recent years, I'm not the biggest fan of Silver Linings Playbook, but he's very good in that.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen American Hustle, but apparently his cameo is great. So the acting is still there, but it's he's not applying it, which is such a waste.
Let's go back onto side characters. So we've also got we've already mentioned the characters played by Tilda Swinton and their interactions between each other. I think it was hilarious that they are both journalists. They're both on screen they're twins. On set, it's the same person. I think that's just perfect Coen Brothers writing. It's just so simple and just funny to watch the interactions between the characters and Tilda Swinton's multiple different characters. You've also got the Hollywood sweetheart being played by Scarlett Johansson, her character of Deanna Moran. And her character at the start, you think, how sweet, how cute. She looks like a nice kind of person. And then throughout the film, you start to see that she isn't actually that nice. She is a brat and she is a horrible person to work with, but she may be one of the best actresses out there.
Yeah, and she's a representative of the 1950s America.
Yeah.
Shall I say that for spoilers or?
No.
It's kind of she's pregnant, but there's no father. There's basically no father. Yeah. She's not married. And that's going to be obviously frowned upon, especially back then. So they have to find her a husband. So a lot of the jokes are them attempting to find her that husband. And then it kind of blows out of proportion, and you see good link-ups with her. But you didn't expect it because you talk about like perfect casting. She is like the sweetheart of cinema, especially in the trailers we saw. Scarlett Johansson in general, everyone loves her. And then you kind of introduce this vicious side of her, which she can play, but it was just so unexpected and it was great.
Yeah.
And then similar to Channing Tatum,
the song and dance man, shall we say, Burt Gurney.
Yeah, and he's kind of doing, I'd say like a typical Tatum performance. Like he's cheerful, he's smiling, he's funny, and he's good at what he's doing. If you know what I mean. And then he's only really got one scene as such, but you just demonstrates him.
I'd say he has two major scenes, and both of them. One of them I thought, what a great testament to cinema. The other one I just laughed out loud at.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to keep away from the second scene, but the main scene you've seen in the trailer and stuff, he's just kind of he's perfect for that Navy sort of singing character.
Yes.
And it's just, again, the casting you can say is arguably the strongest point. I mean, Dolph Lundgren's in this film. I didn't even see him in this film, but he is in there. He is on the cast list.
Yeah.
But everyone, I feel like it's done so well. You feel like they're writing the characters for the actors when really they've just done such an amazing job with the casting.
Yeah,
And
they have.
the casting director plus the Coen brothers, deserve a massive pat on the back for that. But also going back to Tilda Swinton quickly.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious that she was twins. Like I knew she was in the film, but to what extent I didn't know. And then they're just like twin journalists. It was hilarious. I thought.
A lot of the jokes in this film is more about the setup instead of the delivery, but the setup is so well done that it's just I'm just happy to laugh at the delivery as well. Another going back to the point of Channing Tatum's character, I have to say that entire scene was just a complete throwback to the old Hollywood days. I had music from Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang playing in my head at that point, whilst they're dancing on screen, and it was just the screenplay for it and everything in that scene. Everything about that was amazing, especially when it panned out and showed you the entire set, all of the cameramen, work and crew, and it makes you just kind of appreciate cinema that much more. And to think that nowadays it probably would have been filmed like digitally and it's going to have a lot more technical stuff on the set, whilst with this, the sets are made of wooden cardboard. They've made them themselves. Not only have you got that, but you've got the directors sitting on swinging chairs which are up in the sky for aerial shots on every shoot. And just everything about it was just absolutely amazing. Even as a study piece into 1950s cinema, I would have enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and it's going from when they follow Eddie on different sets. So the Hail Caesar set is the biggest film of the year. They're building this gigantic statue. It's very much the Cleopatra / Lawrence of Arabia type film. Everything's dependent on this for them. The fact of representing the era, they've got everyone from different religions around a table asking, is it okay we can do this?
That scene was very funny, by the way.
I know, especially on one of the sort of characters that's talking. And it's just the whole thing is a throwback, and it's just that bit when they rise up and the camera shot rises and you just see all of the film sets. I mean, it's a bit extreme, but back then there would have been a lot of film sets like that. There would have been 7-8 different films shooting on location rather than like today. I bet if you went to Pinewood today, I mean it's massive, but it's filming Star Wars 8, and I bet like 3/4 of Pinewood's dedicated to that film.
Probably right now, yeah.
So it's just really cool to see the sort of, I say it's the golden age they call it, don't they?
Yeah.
Golden age of Hollywood. So it's just such a cool throwback, and I'd like to see more.
Yeah, I would
if you
too.
Know what I mean,
but in fact, one of my critiques of this film, just very quickly, was that it was ever so slightly too short for my liking. I would have preferred it to go on slightly longer.
And it could have gone on longer. You mentioned to me yesterday, and it's kind of similar. When they wrap it up, everything is the main plot is wrapped up too quickly. They could have easily made it last a bit longer. It sort of finishes with Hail Caesar being filmed. I'd have loved to have seen sort of that film being finished.
A few scenes from it. I'd actually like to see that film itself.
Oh, I'd like to see loads of them. I mean, they would have filmed it. It's a bit like Inglourious Bastards. They've got the sniper film that I believe Eli Roth directed within it.
Yeah.
I bet they probably made 2 or 3 for these, which they would have had to. The fact that they were writing scripts within scripts, they would have had to do all of that. I mean, Inside Llewyn Davis proved they can do songwriting. They do that again in this. They are literally one of the dream duos, the Coen brothers.
Yeah, they are. And in fact, one of the things which I really loved about this film, which may not be down to them, was the cinematography. I thought it was beautiful. I'm just trying to find out who it is.
Roger Deakins.
Roger Deakins, of course.
Could that be?
He's done here we go. Directed by Coen Brothers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 films, which he's done for the Coen Brothers.
Could that be his 14th nomination and his first Oscar?
Maybe.
It's just incredible that he's had 13, Oscar nominations.
He is directing Blade Runner 2.
Oh no, that's Denis Villeneuve. But yeah, he's doing cinematography for it.
Yeah. Sorry, not directing, but cinematography.
You think a guy of his talent would have won 1 by now, considering they all cried about Leo, who'd only been nominated for 5.
I know, but Leo is, in fact, one of the themes of this film is Leo is the main actor. He's the one who always gets all the attention.
Yes. But I think is that wrapping up the sort
Yeah,
of
let's
spoiler-free?
let's just go for the finishing off the spoiler-free section. Would you go and watch this film, and would you recommend this film?
Yeah, I'd see it again if I could. Well, I probably will see it again.
I probably will go see it again as well. It's a really good film. It's definitely on my DVD list. When it comes out of cinema, I'm just trying to decide at the moment whether I will go see it again in the cinema. Because it really is really well done. I really enjoyed my time watching it. So let's move now on to the spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the film yet, or you don't want to learn any kind of spoilers about this film, then please switch off now. So let's move on to the funniest moment for you.
It's the submarine. I tried to not say anything about the Channing Tatum because before this film came out, everyone saw him as the singing, dancing guy. So when you find out that Channing Tatum is actually the, let's say, communist leader that has kidnapped and got the $100,000.
Yeah. Okay. Let's actually just explain the plot again for people. Before we go into that. So the plot of the film isn't actually mainly about the fixing man. It's about the main character of the film, Hell Caesar, Baird Whitlock, being kidnapped by two extras and being taken to a house where he is kind of held for ransom, but not really held for ransom, by a group of communist members of set cast. None of the actual cast members, but writers, directors who feel like they haven't been given fair enough pay from the producers themselves. So they're going on a protest and want equal pay, so they kidnap Baird Whitlock, try to get the $100,000 and try to get him on board with the communist scheme. That's basically it.
It was so bizarre, but it was so amazing at the same time.
It was so Coen Brothers, let's just say that.
Yeah, you didn't expect it, and who'd have thought, communism would be a thing, and obviously you get this sort of communism v capitalism degree. The studios is actually called Capital Productions. Yeah, so once it was clear, I was like, that's just that's sorry, that's them rubbing it in.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious, and the way in which the submarine scene, Channing Tatum is going to join and go to the USSR, and they're just rowing this boat into the middle of the sea for ages, and he's kind of there at the forefront with his pet dog, and he just this submarine just appears, and it's so bizarre, and it was just so hilarious.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of jumps onto it.
It's the jump that got me.
Yeah, and it was just the whole build-up.
Okay, so in the scene, basically, massive build-up, massive tension. You're not sure what's going to happen. Submarine appears up. Channing Tatum says, I'm going now back to Mother Russia, basically. And earlier on in the song and dance scene, he did a jump from a table, a very dramatic and very elegant jump over from a table onto a ladder, and then he kind of whipped his hair back like all those hair commercials do. And he does this here at the end onto a Soviet submarine, and I was just laughing out loud. There wasn't many people in my cinema seeing it, but all of us were just in stitches at that scene.
And it was just bizarre, but it was amazing. And then you get the follow-up of he's got the suitcase of the $100,000, which was never actually needed in the first place.
No.
I thought that was hilarious. And then his dog.
Yeah.
His dog runs, and he drops the suitcase to save his dog, and then it's just this. Ooh.
You
from
see
everyone
the
in the boat.
£100,000, which the entire film was really based around, sinking into the bottom of the sea, and it's just a perfect ending for that kind of storyline, I'd say.
Yeah, and it was just a sort of outrageous moment in general, and then there's just leaving these guys there just to row home and do nothing.
Yeah.
And the fact that George Clooney is now a communist.
But he does get slapped silly by Eddie Mannix when he gets back to the producer's studio's room. And I think genuinely, I think in that scene, Josh Brolin actually did slap George Clooney silly. Those weren't fake slaps. I felt those slaps on my face.
Yeah. It was just the way the whole scene was handled, and then you had the ending with he's at things like, "Father, I've sinned." He's like, "I slapped a film star today."
Yeah.
Father's like, "Go home. You haven't done anything." And I just thought there was kind of a great character because the film opens with him.
Yeah.
When it showed him at the start, I knew he was kind of in this Hollywood role.
Yeah.
But as it's filmed within a film, I thought
he was in a film.
Yeah. And then it's actually that's the real life bit, but then they cut to all the film ones, and it was just really well done, well edited as well, I thought.
There's one thing that didn't work for me in the picture, and that was the voiceover narration.
Of Michael Gambon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like I'm not quite sure
I
why
didn't
it was
understand
there.
why it was in place, no.
It just kind of appeared, and it would make sense for introducing the film to the beginning, but after that they kept coming back to it, and I was
Yeah,
there
but to be
like,
honest,
okay.
they could have had characters to introduce other characters. They could
Yeah,
have done it in a
or
different way.
explain.
However, I'd say it's very difficult to get away with narration nowadays in cinema. Unless you're the main character narrating yourself.
Yeah, it's an outdated format.
Yeah. There are some films that do work with narration because there is a wider story that needs to be told, but in this film it really wasn't needed. We worked it out for ourselves as the audience.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It was just the fact they got Michael Gambon just distracted me immediately. Not in a bad way, like obviously he's Dumbledore, but it was too much. Not in the way that Tarantino uses Samuel L. Jackson in *Glorious Bastards*, because that made sense, that fitted it.
Yeah.
Just one of Michael Gambon's stature just didn't suit what they were doing in the film.
No.
It would have been interesting to have kind of had something that would have been more appropriate to the sort of Hollywood era they were looking at. But it kind of took me out of it a bit, I thought.
Yeah. So a couple of other things that we can just quickly discuss before we finish here. Can we talk about the whole subplot between Eddie Mannix being almost tempted to move away from the film industry and what kind of state the film industry was in at the time?
Yeah, and I love this subplot. Basically, he has an offer on the table from... Was it?
Aviation industry, wasn't it? And it was, they were talking about nuclear warfare and stuff like that?
Yeah, and they all think that's going to be a big thing. Obviously, back in the 50s, the atom bomb was in 45. That was a big deal. What I particularly enjoyed was they were saying what's going to happen when TVs come out. It's all going to be irrelevant, etc., etc. I studied this like a year ago, and it's great because when TVs did come out, it massively impacted cinema.
Yeah.
Especially when video was released in the 70s, 80s, but it dented it, and they had to look at the way they did stuff.
And cinema has started to recover now, and I feel like actually going to the cinemas, it doesn't happen as frequently now because we've got streaming services like that, but it's such an old industry. I mean, theatres, that's even older than cinemas, and it's still getting a huge revenue in because new, fresh ideas are coming out every day, and people are willing to pay for those experiences.
Exactly, and with the cinema back then, that's the only way you could see anything. You'd go to the cinema to watch the news. They don't really talk about it there and then.
Yeah.
But whereas today, you've got home cinema. Aspect ratios are a big thing. You know, you'd have a 4:3 TV, whereas cinema was always widescreen. So there was so much more to it. Whereas in today's era, we've got everything on our plate. Perfect TVs at home, 3D setups at home, computers to stream it, Netflix, binge telly.
Yep.
Telly's arguably getting better than.
And then people have gaming devices as well, which is another distraction. It's just
and it was so interesting. Just it's only a few cutaway lines in this film, but it's so relevant to the future because back then they were probably thinking about that, especially if you worked in the industry.
And just like all of the other subplots in the actual film, this one was also designed to show you that Eddie Mannix is a busy man with a lot on his mind. He doesn't just have to think about what's best for his actors whilst he's still doing the job, but he's got to think about what's best for him and think about the future. And it was a brilliant reflection on kind of what was happening at the film industry at the time and what happens for just working people at the time and the different jobs that a Hollywood fixer may have had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be talking about nuclear stuff if you weren't a bit of a tough person, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just the way he was kind of deciding, he knew that next job would be easier, and he spoke to
it was a 10-year job, and he could retire at the end of it and never have to work again.
Yeah, and he ultimately chooses the harder job.
Yeah, more of the fact that he's already emotionally invested in everyone, and he feels like he's doing a good enough job for it and responsible for it.
Yeah, and I kind of enjoy that arc because the way I saw it was almost a day in the life of Eddie Mannix.
Yeah.
Because he's known this guy from somewhere before. He has to come back to him. The offer's been on the table from days before. So in the way that Inside Llewyn Davis kind of repeats the ending is also the beginning, I kind of had that feeling to this film that it was just one of them, a day in the life of, and that's what the Coen brothers do so well. Because they never have this overstretched, farly elaborate story. It's always this is meet A, Z's about to happen, watch it.
Yeah.
And it's so much better like that rather than something else.
One final thing that I'd like to talk about before we move into the pros and cons of the film and just conclude it. We talked earlier about the character of Hobie Doyle and his impact on the film. I just want to go into that a bit more now that we're in the spoilers section, because I have to say, not only was he the breakout this was obviously his breakout role into the film industry, but what a role. He completely stole the film.
Oh, yeah. I've never heard anything about this kid. Even this has been out in America, I think, about a month now.
Yeah.
No one's really spoke about him, and he's the standout star from it. He's going to be big now from this. He'll get job offers, stuff like that.
I think it'd be wise to stick with the Coens as well, because, just sticking in for 1 or 2 films with the Coens, and you've got yourself a career there.
Yeah, and already off the back of this, he'll have offers everywhere, because the fact they've took him on, he's very high-profile directors, incredibly sort of niche casting. It wasn't just this risk. He was clearly the best of the bunch that auditioned or that they scouted.
Yeah. And oh no, you go first.
I was just going to say, in general, his character is just
lovable.
Great. When they kind of show him like impressing the girl when he's just playing with the rope, and
that was adorable.
Exactly, and then he's doing it with his spaghetti, and he goes, "This is why I have the one without the meat sauce." And he's just like this little excited kid, and he's loving it.
Yeah. And
it's kind of, it reminded me of a Tarantino film where it's not related to the plot, but they've added this scene. Well, it kind of is. The end of the scene is relatable, but they added this dialogue because it just builds up the character, and you feel like you've got to know him, and it kind of has this response within you.
Yeah. And I have to say, because most of the films I've seen this year, for some strange reason, have contained a dumb character. I've seen Zoolander 2, I've seen Grimsby, and I've seen this film. And I have to say, this character, he was probably the most favoured out of all of them because he was relatable. Even though he was this kind of dumb action star, he was a big fish out of water being thrown into this film, and he's just trying to please everyone. How can you not kind of like him for that? I mean, even if his accent is annoying, it's annoying because that's the kind of accent that he's meant to do in the industry that he was made for. I mean, the backstory for him as how he got into the film industry was that he was good at ranching, he was good at kind of rodeoing, and someone basically brought him in to do a couple of stunts and stuff like that, and then they discovered that he could sing, and they thought, there's a winning formula. And even when you see him in his film, which he goes to the premiere with, he takes some other star,
another actress,
yeah. But whilst he's watching that film, you can see him, he put so much effort into a performance which didn't look like he had much effort into. And he's smiling and he's happy with his performance. And in the end, at the end of the film, where he goes and basically rescues George Clooney, you think he's going to say something over the top or anything like that, but you feel like his character is emotionally matured by the end, where he just kind of takes him out of the house, puts him in the car, drives home, and then tells him that he made sure that the police knew what was going on and stuff like that. And he's just, his entire character arc in the film was amazing, and even if we don't get to see that character again, I'd love to see this actor do some more performances.
Oh, he definitely will with this. I mean, it's the range, and what I loved was when they sit him down for the new film. They've got the sort of dolly of the camera track.
Yeah.
He just stared. The whole shot's him staring at the camera because he said he's not used to sort of doing normal stuff. He's used to being on a horse or having the attention away from the cameras, where they've got this intricate one following him round. And obviously that leads on to a lot of the comedy moments. The way his kind of feet are squeaking on the wooden set as well.
Yeah.
And in the editing suite, they show the clips of the film of the day. And there's just this brilliant moment where they've tried to sort of dub over the top of the shoes, but they're still there and you can hear it, which was just great, I thought. And it was really cool seeing old editing suite. I mean, especially with reel, but in modern day, we've all got tech, we all do it easily. Back then, it was you had to do reel by reel, and you had to get the perfect chopping point and sort of loose it up together, compared to now you just press a button.
But anyway, that was our review of Hail Caesar. I think we can both safely say you should go and watch this film, including you, Chris, because we know you're listening in. thank you ever so much for watching, guys. I'm not sure what the next big films are that are coming out in the UK. I know that Anomalisa has just come out for us, so we'll get a review up pretty soon for that. We've also got Batman vs Superman to look forward to. Zootropolis, or Zootopia. It's called Zootropolis in Europe. I'm not sure why. But other than that, I think we're pretty much open plan, and we'll be looking forward to just getting you guys some reviews, some trailer reactions, maybe a few more live streams whenever we can. So thank you ever so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next one.